Last Saturday, Enahoro explained emotional intelligence to us. And my mom said she saw me have my eureka moment. And that's why I've decided to spend the next few Saturdays peeling back the many layers of emotional intelligence, starting this morning with understanding and managing grief. Each Saturday we'll have a different subject matter expert, so please remember to set your alarm. Today's expert is Mojisola Ogunkoya. Mojisola is an accountant with over 15 years experience spread across manufacturing, banking, and real estate. She's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, as well as a certified emotional intelligence coach, a grief support specialist and educator. She's currently the head of accounts department at Mojisola & Co. Prior to joining Mojisola & Co. in 2010, she worked with Talamis Oil Mill Limited and GS Microfinance Bank Limited. Welcome, Moji.
Thank you so
It's really quite awesome to have you here. I didn't realize that they were grief specialists and educators.
Okay, so it's a good thing for you to know right now. I think it's a good place to actually start.
Okay.
So there are many people that are doing Grieve, let me say that,
Yes.
across the world.
Okay.
So you choose to be a specialist or an educator.
Okay.
And so when you talk about a specialist, it's just for you, people who support, like you want to guide people on their grief journey.
Okay.
Like helping them, like you counsel them, maybe you coach them if you can use that word. And so we also have the grief educator. You do all of those things, helping people through the journey of grief, but also creating education, because education, we say, is power. Yes. And so when people know what they are really going through, it helps them. So you educate and create awareness.
Wow. Okay, so what is grief?
So I'm just going to try to describe it because we have so many definitions. So for me, I would say that grief is love. Grief is a form of love. Grief is another side of love. Grief is just love, looking for a place to go. And so when we talk about grief, we talk about a response that you have when you have lost something or someone that is significant to you. And so the natural response is for you to grieve, because something that you have access to, you no longer have access to them. So that is what grief is.
Your definition is actually quite interesting, because I've never actually heard it put that way. Grief is love.
Yeah.
But it makes a lot of sense. So does that mean that grief only applies to the loss of a loved one, like death?
Okay. No. Grief is a response to so many things. And when you look at when I try to describe what grief is, I say it's a response that you have for something or someone. So when we talk about someone, it's about the death of a person. So, but when you talk about...
Is it always about the death of a person?
It's not always. Okay. So when you talk about something, we have so many things. Like even a separation, like a divorce, even retirement, the loss of body parts, or even aging. When you are aging, you're like you don't have the capacity to do what you normally do. That can cause grief. Losing a friend, losing a job. So it's not always about the death of a person. So, but you can say, if people say it's about death, it's a yes and it's a no. Because the end of a relationship is the death of that relationship. Even if the two people decide to come back, it's not the same thing. They are starting a new journey. It's possible that they are adding more things to where they used to be. So it's not the same thing. So if you hear someone say it's about death, ask them, are you saying the death of a person or the death? Because death is just an end.
So one of the things you said is it can be associated to the loss of a job.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can it be associated to the loss of material things?
Yeah. Loss of material things, like you said, maybe you have a car and it's being stolen.
Yes.
So it's something you love, it's something you cherish, so you grieve. And so when we talk about grief, we don't minimize people's grief. Someone can even say that, oh, I have a particular cloth and I can't find it again and I'm grieving. You don't say, oh, you mean cloth? What's there in cloth?
That's where I was going to. I'm like, because my first instinct is, okay, you have a particular item of clothing, you've lost it. Yeah. I don't understand. Why you, okay, yes, you are sad, but that's not the same thing as grief, is it?
You know, when we talk about grief, grief is, okay, we refer grief to emotion. but it's a complex emotion because for me, I look at grief and I say it's a house of emotions. Because when you are grieving, so many things come. So there is sadness there in grief. There is anxiety in grief. There is frustration in grief. There is joy in grief. There is happiness in grief. And so it's possible for you to be grieving and still have a kind of relief. So when you talk about grief, looking at it, there are so many things. So when someone has lost maybe a particular thing, like you said, the person is sad. What the person is doing is grief. And like we used to say, we tell people, I would say, the sadness that you're seeing is grief.
Wow.
Yes, so it's just when you talk about grief, it's so many things. And that's why there are people who don't agree that grief is emotion. So, but we now go for that and say, okay, if you don't want to agree that it's an emotion, so it's a complex emotion because it's an emotion that embodies so many other emotions.
So what are the stages?
Okay, so in talking about the stages, there are so many, when you even look around or when you try to check, there are so many stages of grief. You find 12 stages of grief. You find some saying their own is 8 stages of grief. You find 4. You find 7. But there is 5 stages of grief. That is the most popular one.
Okay.
So, and that work is by, she's late now. She's, her name was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the one that developed that 5 stages of grief. And when she developed it, it wasn't meant for people that were maybe grieving the death of a person. So it was actually established because she was, at that point, she was a mental health doctor and she was taking care of people with terminal illness. People who already have maybe a time of when they're going to die. So she has established that 5 stages to help them.
What are those 5 stages?
Okay, so the 5 stages, the first one is denial.
Okay.
So we have denial, and that denial is a point where you are in a point of disbelief. You can't believe that this is happening. And we used to say that there is grace in denial because denial helps you to actually make sense of what has happened in a bit. Because sometimes when you just grab it at once, it can have a mental health implication. So it helps you to just ask me, oh, this has happened. You know that it has happened, but you can't just believe it. So, and that's why we come and say there is grace in denial. So after that denial, and it begins to sink in bit by bit. Oh, you are now realizing, so it's true, this has happened. You can then come up with anger. You are angry. How can this happen? And when you are angry, you can be angry with so many people. You can be angry with yourself. You can even be angry with, if it's about the death of a loved one, you could be angry with the person who has died. Why is it that they didn't talk about this illness on time? You can also be angry at the doctor. Why is it that they didn't do the right thing?
I'm going to trivialize it. Forgive me, all dog lovers. Okay. But if your dog died, are you going to be angry at your dog?
So we look at the importance. Is the death of dog, is it important to me? Is it significant to me? So it's not all the time that you have the stages.
Okay.
And some people don't even believe that there are stages.
I see.
So it all depends on the situation. We look at grief and we say grief is unique because as human beings, you are unique. So your response is going to be unique. So for someone, pets or a dog is very important. Yes. And they could even blame their dog. Maybe the dog is missing. Why did they always go out of where you normally keep them? And for some, they look at dog and say, what is dog? What's so important? And that's why we say, when we talk about grief, is it significant? Is it important to that person?
So you first have to ask yourself if it's significant and important. Okay. I interrupted you. You had stopped at anger.
Anger, yes.
So what's the next one?
So after anger, now that you are angry, you can then go to bargaining. You know, at the beginning, you didn't believe. Now, it's already sink in that, oh, this is true, you are angry. So you can then begin to bargain. You could bargain with God. God, please, maybe the person is still in the hospital, he's not yet dead. And so if you can allow my uncle or my husband, just help him. You know, I'll become a good Christian. I'll pay my tithes and all of those stuff. So you are trying to bargain with. And you can also be bargaining with yourself. Like, okay, maybe I'll love my husband more. If my husband can, you know, those are...
What if it's a material thing that you're grieving? Like the loss of a car?
The loss of a car, yes, you could still bargain with God and say, God, let me just find this car. And you see me, I'll become a changed person.
I see.
So it doesn't matter. What matters is it important to that person? So after bargaining, it's possible that what you bargained for at the end of the day, you still have to part away with them. Okay. So then you can then move, someone can then move to depression. because you've tried. You wish your son is alive, but now the reality is that the son is no more. So you are depressed, you are sad. And when we talk about depression, it's a situational depression on the line of the stages of grief. So I don't think I want to go deep into. Well, so after depression, we now come to what we mean, or what we say is acceptance.
Okay.
And when we get to the point of acceptance does not mean you are happy. Acceptance does not mean, oh, everything is over. But acceptance just means that, oh, I have tried all my best, I was angry, I bargained, and you know, I'm even depressed. But now, let me just learn how to live my life with the understanding that this person is no more, or this relationship has ended. So that is what acceptance means. So, but I'll try, before I go, I said that 5 stages of grief is what is popular, but it is no longer 5, it's now 6.
Really?
Yes, it's now 6, but many people are not aware that it's no longer 5, but it's 6. Because when Elizabeth did that work, she didn't do it alone. She did it with a man called David Kessler. So, and after the death of Elizabeth, David Kessler lost his son about 4 years ago. So he was also grieving. And he has been practicing for more than 40 years. So, but that pain did not hit him like that because he has never lost a son. So at the point when he lost his son, he said he passed through all those stages. So when he got to acceptance, he now said, whatness? I am not satisfied with acceptance. So there must be something after acceptance. So he now created another stage called finding meaning. After you have accepted what happened. So finding meaning is, what growth can I see in what has happened? What can I do? So, and when you talk about finding meaning, is for me, I see it as a journey, not a destination. Like what I'm doing now is meaning, because I've suffered multiple losses, do you understand? So it's meaning, but it's not static. So some people, meaning for them is just trying to support other grievers in their neighborhood. It's meaning. And when you talk about meaning, you're just trying to hold on to something. It won't solve the problem. If your son was dead, it's not going to bring your son, but at least you are just holding to. And that's why you see some people, they'll say how they have a loss of a loved one and they are creating a foundation. What they are doing is meaning. So he added one. So we now have the 6th stage from the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross.
Yes, because you said that there are lots of other theories.
There are lots of others, but the 5 stages is the most popular one.
It's the most. 5 stages, now 6. Finding meaning. And it's interesting because it takes me back to something you said earlier where you said grief can also be joy.
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking about finding meaning and that statement. Can you shed a bit more light to that?
Yeah. So finding meaning is not necessarily like you're joyful, but you're just trying to hold yourself. You're trying to, there's something we call about, you can't move on, but you can move forward. So you're trying to move forward with life and you're holding on to something. That has not bring an end to your own grief. You are still a griever because once a griever is a griever for life, if I can say that. And so the question you asked me is that, so when you are in grief, there is joy there. It's just that you are too overwhelmed to see the joy.
I see.
So, and we talk about something in grief, we say grief and joy can actually coexist.
How?
So it's there, but it's silent. You know, okay, let me use myself as an example, if I can do that. So
yes,
when I lost my son, so at the beginning, I couldn't even laugh. But that does not mean joy was not there. That does not mean that there are nothing, that I couldn't maybe express it, but that time I was not just ready. And the pain is overwhelming. So when you are in pain, there's a way your brain look at it and see it and just try to silence the joy. So the joy is waiting for you when you are ready. So it's there. And I don't know if I can, there's an adage in Yoruba that I normally talk about, they say, Taban sukun amariron. Like, the joy is there, but you can't see it.
Can you translate that adage to English? For not
sorry. Like, when you're crying, that you are in grief does not mean that you're blind. And that you are in grief does not mean that you can't think.
Yes.
And that's why we even say, don't think for people who are in grief. They can't think. So don't take all the things and say, let me do it for you, let me do it my way, and thinking that because they are in grief, no. So what I mean using that adage is that the fact that you are grieving does not mean that the joy is not there. It's just that for now, the joy has to be silent. And also, I can remember my son now and laugh. Sometimes.
The memories.
The memories.
Yes.
So, but even at that first day, the memory was there, but it was silent.
I see.
So if you get what I mean.
I see, I see. So how does this relate to emotional intelligence?
Okay. So when you talk about emotional intelligence, it's just your ability. There are so many definitions to it, to really know yourself. So your ability to be able to choose yourself and give yourself. So knowing yourself as grieve, like you know that this is what I'm going through. This is what the price I have to pay because I love someone. And
so you lost something.
Yeah, or you lost something. You love someone is also correct because if you don't love that thing, you can't grieve for it. So emotional intelligence will help you to know that, okay, I know myself, I'm a griever. I know what has happened to me because the self-awareness is about what is happening. Okay, is it that it's a loss of job? I've lost my job. And so you can then choose yourself. You know, it's a natural reaction, but there's a way you can also choose yourself. And how do you choose yourself? You know you are grieving and you know that something is already happening to you. You have to say it out. Let people know. You are choosing yourself. You are helping yourself. That is emotional intelligence. But when people are grieving, we don't force people to say, you have to use emotional intelligence. No, because we know that grieving is not easy. We used to say that it's a hard work. It's hard. But you just have to help yourself. You have to help yourself to move forward. So that's when emotional intelligence comes in. Your ability to choose yourself and say, okay, so I'm grieving, I need help. I'm grieving, I can't go to the market, I need someone to help me. I'm grieving, it's like I can no longer concentrate. I need to see a specialist or someone who can just talk to me.
What about people who choose not to say anything? They hold it all in, regardless of what the loss is.
Yeah, you know, when it comes to grieving, I've said it before, it's unique, and people are different. Okay, there are people we call the intuitive grievers. Intuitive grievers is that they don't hide their grief. It's not like they want to make noise, but that is who they are. Like you can see the testament of their grief on their face, looking at them. And those are the people that you see them shouting, see them everywhere, because you can just know. You don't need, and even if you don't know them before, seeing them, you just know that something is wrong. Let me ask if it's possible. But we also have the people we call the practical or instrumental grievers. Those people don't talk. They rather and those are the people, they put themselves into work. And those are the people you see, maybe if someone, they've lost a loved one, they are trying to do the burial, the funeral, there are the people here calling the funeral director. They don't just want to. And there are some people that society also make them to be like that. Or the nature of, maybe they are the firstborn or the father of the house, and maybe the mother is no more, and they have to take responsibility. So we have different type of grievers. So in grief, there is no judgment. We don't judge people. Why are you keeping quiet? Why are you not saying? Because he's the only one or she is the only one who is wearing the shoe. So, and some people don't want to talk because they are shame. There is also shame in grief. And that's why I say that. And they don't, complex. Yes, so it's complex. It's a complex emotion.
So how do we, so the griever and the family and friends of the griever, are there tools and techniques that both parties can use to get through this grief journey? Okay.
So I would say that the griever, when you have lost something, you are not the only, we should understand that you are not the only one grieving. But we, you know, like if in a house we have a woman that lost maybe her husband, so she also have maybe a mother and children, all of them are grievers. So it's just the level of attachment and significance that will determine how each of them are going to go about their grief, and maybe the kind of griever that they are. So when you are grieving as a griever, just know that you are not the only one, but you are the only one. So maybe let's not go to that point. So, but let me go to your question. How do we help ourselves out of grief, and how do we help? So I will say that as a griever, you first of all know that this is what is happening to me, I'm grieving. And so you accept the reality of what has happened. I have lost something or I've lost someone. And the journey is not going to be easy, but I can move forward. So you have to get to that point where you accept. And also you should be open to support when people want to help you. And another thing that you can do is that talk about your pain. You know, there is power in sharing your story. I know that it's not easy, but if you can do it, it's powerful. And don't be concerned about are they going to be able to help me. Of course, nobody will be able to help you. That's just the truth. But at least you have done your own part.
Yourself.
Yes, you have unburdened yourself. So you'll be able to tell your story. And when you feel that this thing is taking you down a road that you don't know, you need to speak up. You need to get support. And so there are countries or places where we have support group here and there abroad. In fact, immediately you have a loss, you know where to go, or people direct you to where to go. But in this our society where we don't have that kind of thing, but maybe you can begin to talk to people, see professional, don't be ashamed. There is shame in grief, but please don't be ashamed to do that. So these are the kind of little steps that you can do as a griever. But for other grievers, maybe that are not the major grievers, if I can say that, they have to be there to listen. See, what a griever needs is not much. A griever just wants you to reason and accept that I am grieving. A griever wants you to be there. A griever knows that you don't have solution, but are you there to really listen? A griever don't want you to judge them, so don't judge a griever. And don't say to a griever, it is well. So, because it is well, but at that point, it is not well with them. Yes. So there is no need. And so, also, how to support a griever, depending on what has happened. Don't promise a griever what you cannot do. Don't say to a griever, I'll come visit you, and you know you will not come, except if you have other reason, and let the person know. And also, you can go to their house, clean up their house, buy food for them, do shopping for them. If they need financial support and you have support
just
them.
Be supportive and be there for them.
And be there and don't judge them.
And don't judge them. That is one thing that you kept saying. Yes. Don't judge them, don't judge them, don't judge them. It's interesting how I didn't realize that this topic would be such a mammoth topic that we would not have enough time. You know, and as always, we've literally run out of time, but there are a lot of succinct things that you've said. So thank you so much, Moji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm in complete awe of what you're doing.
Thank you.
I hope there are much more people like you in our country so that, like you said, we can begin to have support groups for grievers. And you can grieve even when you've lost a job, or you lost your car, or you've lost your favorite outfit. So grief is not only about death. But thank you so much, Moji. It's been awesome having you here today.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
So in another few minutes, John, Helen, and myself will be rounding up the show. So please, please stay tuned for a few more minutes. Thank you so much.